Hey there, I'm Ronny and I'm here with Frederik, Hansi and André from Blind Guardian. Before anyone wonders, Markus had to pass today because he just tested positive for COVID, but the show must go on, so
it's live.
Welcome guys. Please tell us where we are and why this wonderful location is connected to your album.
This wonderful place is called the Grotesque Bar. It's an Absinth-Bar in Aachen, which is a beautiful city in Germany. And we're here because we did a video for, what song was it? Life Beyond the Spheres. And that's when we appear as artificial creatures and they are wearing suits. And then we came up with the idea to do a photo session and we needed a place like this. And Dirk, our filmer, he just had the idea that this would be the perfect location. We did a great photo session and we're really happy with the outcome. So we thought this would be the best place for such an interview.
Mm-hmm. So, and let's talk about the record, the new album. Compared to the last few records, which had a lot of orchestrations and were pretty complex at sometimes, the sound is centered more around the band this time. So, is the God Machine a new beginning for you?
For me, it definitely is. I was happy when we finished Legacy of the Dark Land, which took far too long. 25 years is even an accomplishment for us. And I thought that we have defined everything in that direction, what we possibly could tell about orchestral music. So for me, it was definitely a new beginning. And yeah, you just pointed it out. It is centered musically on the four protagonists. And this was also something I was really hoping for.
Yeah, it just felt natural to go back to a, let's say more band feeling, to bring in the metal again in a strong way. And we didn't feel like composing epic songs with lots of orchestra at that time. So for us, it was more important to see if we are working as a speed metal band and test this out again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was natural to do the real opposite and keep the band and everything in a balance, musical wise. When COVID started, we had lots of time additionally, and we could rehearse, which we usually don't do that often. But then
not at all.
But then, yeah, we rehearsed more often, and we really felt the heart and powerful songs, and that was the way we went then for the songwriting.
Mm-hmm. So how did it feel for you, Frederik, to do this very, very speedy drums again?
Yeah, it was pretty clear in the songwriting process that we wanted to go for more straighter songs and more fast-forward songs. Yeah, as André said, we did already try out some things during the rehearsals, but it was pretty clear that we felt all very cool about the faster metal stuff again. So that's why we focused on that energy.
Mm-hmm. And how important was the production team for this new direction?
It is always very important. We worked with Tommy Geiger and Charlie Bauerfeind mainly, but Joost Vandenbroek also got in, did a bit of pre-production and later on the mixing. So there was a bit of changing in the regular setup. But in general, all the people involved, and that of course involves us again as well, had the same target and the same goals. And we defined them very early, after songwriting basically, even before pre-production. And we never lost the road and we never left the road. Usually one or the other comes up with an idea which goes into slightly different directions, and then you sometimes lose the view a little bit. But in this one, everyone was driving towards the same direction. Charlie was conducting it in a very skillful way. And that was, I think, from the productions we have done in a long, long time, the most ambitious and the most relaxed one. It was still a lot of toil.
And you can say that because of the new guys that entered the team, like Tommy and Joost, there was a fresh wind of creativity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, all three guys really understand what we want to do, what Blind Guardian is all about. And that's the most important thing. But also when you work on a demo tape, there's always coming a kind of dynamic in the production. And of course, everybody's trying to bring his own ideas. And Tommy, Joost, and Charlie are very creative people with a great understandings. Yeah, that we really used that time we had to go deeper into the songs, try to figure out all the bugs that usually you don't have time to sort out. But this time we really did almost demo tapes for each song, which is unusual for Blind Guardian. And that really helped. That helped to get an understanding before the real recordings even started. And with all this creativity, and Charlie is a great technical supervisor, it was really going smooth.
And the album sounds more organic than the last record. So was that one of your goals also?
It was, but it's never the intention to do an unorganic album. It's mainly that when you work with orchestra, which we did on Legacy and Beyond the Red Mirror, the orchestra demands a lot of space in the mixing and in the featuring. And this obviously had not been there when we worked with orchestral music. We simply programmed it, and this can be placed differently than an orchestra because you don't have the room. And therefore there was more space for the rest. But for instance, when it comes to vocals, we even went more for that red guideline, which we also try to work out on Beyond the Red Mirror and also on At the Edge of Time. But here it was a bit easier because of the compositions. But we also went very straight there and said, well, this is the main vocal line. Everything else has second priority. We drive back the choir amount a little bit. So there is huge choirs in each and every song, but they do not pop up constantly, and all that allowed space for the rest of the instruments, of course. André did the same with the lead guitars, and everything was already designed in that particular direction. But I also think that Joost did a tremendous job in featuring all these elements in the way he's mixing, and that was a very good match, I would say.
Yeah, as I said before, that we did the demo tapes for each song really helped, because we could sort out the instruments and the whole arrangements in a way that it's more smooth and more connected. And in that way, you feel this organic working of the song. It's just better than writing a song without really testing it and then record it, which we did in the previous albums, because there was never the time to do so many demos and rehearsing and all this. So usually you skip this and just go for the record, and then you live with the outcome, let's say. And now we had the time to sort things out, and that's what we did. And as Hansi said, with Joost, there's someone who is really mixing with 3 dimensions, you can say. It is really he's mixing in a room design which is extraordinary. With this you get more space for each instrument. You can really see that there's another dimension, and that helps a lot with the music, which is, let's say, still complex. Loaded and complex with so many instruments, like in Blind Guardian.
And you rehearsed the Somewhere Far Beyond material during the production of this record, because the anniversary tour should have happened in 2021, but was pushed back to 2022 because of the pandemic. So did the old material had an influence on the new record?
I heard people even saying that the music sounds a little bit like Somewhere Far Beyond. That's maybe because of the intensity. From my point of view, that was not the case. Somewhere Far Beyond aside, and that was just a different mission. What might have been a sort of influence in the beginning was the shows we played with Imaginations from the Other Side, because they went on until 2017, and we started first songs in 2018-19. So they might carry the spirit, still of these shows. Even though I have to say the songs we first worked on was Secrets of the American Gods and Architects of Doom, which are more complex songs. So they also carry the handwriting of Beyond the Red Mirror and Legacy of the Darklands.
Yeah, and I think that we didn't try to do a kind of old school album or to go back to the roots. It was more like bringing the speed metal into the time now, and all the knowledge and experience we gained over the last years, trying to improve this speed metal style of Blind Guardian. I mean, when we released Somewhere Far Beyond, all this was new. It was kind of new genre, and there was nothing that could compete with this kind of music. So yeah, it was a win situation. But nowadays there's so many great bands who play hard music, and now you have that competition, and you cannot just do something, let's say, old school or reproducing yourself. It would never compete and never sound like with the time spirit of now. So you need to improve. You need to bring, if you want a new speed song, you need to bring it to the year 2022. That's it. And that's what we try to do. And I think that's what we achieved with these songs. It doesn't sound old and dusty. It sounds like modern, but still has that energy and the speed metal approach.
So was there any song that you were not sure about in the beginning, but which turned out great in the end?
We have arguments to put that straight. We started the pre-production even with about 14 songs. So we discussed, which songs would really fit into the ideas we would have for this album. And the other ones, most of them are on the same level. So it's not a question of quality, but it was a question of where to put them and, what would they bring to the album. So we skipped these for the moment and we hold them for a later occasion. They are diverse, they are very progressive, they are very artsy. So I'm really looking forward to working on them. But in every album setup, I have my problems in imagining how they all would fit together. So we may have to split them. The songs we have chosen are the ones which are all speaking the same language. This was quite obvious from the beginning for us. So we kept our focus on those.
Yeah, and we really this time we tried to bring in a flow in the album, and until we had the right order, took some time. We tried several variations, and I think that is really important because we don't see the separate songs. We always look for whole album and the feeling you get when you listen to the whole album. That is really important for us. Yeah, so we tried to bring in a dynamic flow into the order, and I think that works nice. We have some slow songs, some more progressive songs, an epic song like Destiny in the final. So for us, this is the perfect setup for a full album.
And we were also working on the songs. Of course, there were doubts, as usual, and there were discussions. When, for example, we take a song like Let It Be No More, we worked on this one until the very last moment because I was not really convinced, because it's not really a ballad, but it's also no mid-tempo song. And I was confused by a particular part which is not in there anymore. That is a process of that pre-production and songwriting period we have had, because that drove the whole song into a medieval impression and then changed to what, you hear in the song. And I was like, I do not buy the song, not at all. So maybe it's also good to put that aside as well. But then André came up with the new introduction and we exchanged the parts. And then all of a sudden, the song started to shine. Other than that, of course, there's favorites and there's songs where you sometimes consider them to be least favorite. Not B songs. There is no B song. But for example, a song like Blood of the Elves was not on my list, not at all. We spoke about that before. We forgot about this song during songwriting period, like 1 or 2 times, because we liked it. It was speed metal, but it did not pop out. So we put it aside and then started to work on another song and revisited the song, and the same thing happened again. And when we really had the clear idea about the album, we said there must be one more speed metal song. And I said, yeah, we have one, and I think it was good, but I cannot recall at all what it is about. So we revisited it and then we put it together. And I believe that this is going to be one of the most favorite of the fans. We featured that as the third video.
Third video.
And from what we can see now, people are really into that one.
Yeah. And I agree to Hansi that Let It Be No More would be probably the song we would skip first. If we had to skip one more, But on the other hand, we always think that it's good to have something slow on an album to just give the listener a little bit time to relax again after so much energy and brutality, let's say. And I really like this dynamic breakdown after Violent Shadows to completely collapse and be a little bit more silent. But if I had to choose one song where I would say, okay, I wouldn't need that, then it would be Let It Be No More.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure after, talking to some people that this is also which will become a most favorite of the fans. Because
I got so good reactions, and you can never, we are good songwriters, but from this, we are really strange, because from the Follow album, we would skip Valhalla. That is just a fact,
Yeah. And it's always the same. We have an idea, and these songs may not be the ones which finally make it. That's always the same. I don't know what that is, because we may have an artistic view on it, and therefore we fall in love with different ones, or
we are focused on totally other details.
Yeah. It's really weird, but I'm almost confident now that Let It Be No More will also be one of the winning songs on the album.
The album is about 50 minutes long, which is a lot shorter than the previous albums. And was it clear from the beginning that you will focus on 9 tracks, or did you flirt with the idea to do 10, 11, 12 tracks at one point?
I think that the decision came naturally when we just saw which tracks belong to each other for the album. And when we figured out the order, we saw that this combination had the best flow and the best dynamic. And we didn't care about the exactly outcome of the time. If it would be 1 hour, it would be 1 hour. But we think that 50 minutes is, let's say, the minimum we want to do. And we reached that, and we are fine with this. It's better to have a compact album which is really round than adding one song which is breaking this flow. Mm-hmm. And that was really important for us.
Yeah, we had one more song we worked on, which is a hybrid. It has a little bit of the definition I made before. It's complex, but on the other hand, it's also a very intense song. So from that regard, it would have fitted in. We didn't know where to place it. It simply did not fit in. So we put it aside, and then even spoke with the record company. And that's very significant for the record company. The record company even said, it's a great song, but don't use it as a bonus, because it still does not fit in. So we're keeping it for a later occasion again. And it is, I must say, a brilliant song. And it has amazing lyrics about Cervantes. It's going into Don Quixote direction.
Don't spoil too much now.
I have to, because I'm so proud about that one. But yeah, it had to go, and it will appeal to people, but it would not appeal on this album.
Yeah, it was also a little bit sad that it had been dropped, because I had a lot of work with that particular song, and it was definitely the most that I had to work on of the whole album, I would say.
Story of your life.
Yeah, well, but it's in the end, it's about the overall package, and we want to have a good fitting amount of songs, and it would have not blend in.
And if you think about earlier albums, the classic rock albums, doesn't matter what, Kiss, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, they are vinyl days, and I really love this. They are all below 40 minutes. Mm. And probably there's a reason why we still love these albums.
Mm. And also, Imaginations is not much longer, if at all. So it's a suitable length.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes out when you play those albums in a row, right? Yeah. On the concerts now, like, no, it's only for 50 minutes.
You have a new bassist. How did you find him, and what did he bring to the studio and live performance?
Johan came in after the recording, so the recordings still have been done by Barber, and he did a great job. He left because he was aiming into different directions. We were not involved at all, so he made that decision because he wants to go with another band, which is totally fine. And then we were in urge of a bassist, and that happened short before we played the first shows in 21, we were in urge for a new bass player because at that point there was still a big festival planned, the Bullhead Festival, which did not take place then. Yeah, we love Dutchies, so somehow, you know, we have a passion, we have a crush on them.
Easy to work with.
It was Joost suggesting him, but I worked with him in a different setup when I was invited to the Aryan shows some years ago. And we had a blast together on stage and also backstage. So I was a little embarrassed that I did not come up with an idea myself, but it was Joost suggesting him. We did a rehearsal and we liked him as a person and we all fell in love with his sounding. He has such a distinguished bass sounding and the way he plays. So he's an enrichment. He's on eyesight with Oliver or Bear, definitely better than I am.
Not to forget his fabulous stage performance. I think this is
really he's young. I mean,
what would you expect? He has a good stage.
Yeah, I think so too.
I like it. I like it. It's really fun to play with him.
Yeah, I like it too. He's really a great addition for our live performance.
But he has the old grey-haired master in front of him, so he still can learn. You know,
he's a cool guy.
Yeah, he is.
For us, the most important thing is anyways the personality. Because we are like family. It's not just about having a great musician with you if the personality doesn't fit. Yeah, and now we played some gigs together, we traveled together, and he fits very well into the team.
Great. Let's talk about the lyrics a little bit. They seem to be influenced by fantasy books again, but they also seem to deal with some personal stuff as well. So please give us a little insight.
They always do. I mean, it doesn't matter if you go into Legacy of Dark Lands or any of the other albums. It's always, you know, it's a personal approach. It's a personal interpretation of life and the stories themselves and what they made of me emotionally. So that, you know, hasn't changed at all. Probably has gotten more depth over the years. So it's sometimes, if I don't mention it, more difficult to understand the source, especially if it's a source of literature. But in this case, the narrative is still strong. So these stories, they have a certain influence, like Secrets of the American Gods obviously is influenced by Neil Gaiman's American Gods. And I like the images and the atmospheres which he is weaving into his words more than the story. The story is great, don't get me wrong, but it's really, you know, you fall into a certain feeling, and I caught up on that and then told my own story related to these American gods, and I was fascinated by the idea of, you know, when people approach a shore like the American ones, they bring along with them their gods and they incarnate. And then they have to be doing whatever they do, and they are fostered. They cannot leave, and they get weaker, but they are still deities. And I dealt with that a lot. And I particularly have chosen the moment. My idea was the approaching of the first Christians to the American shores, bringing along with them Jesus. And he has a first encounter with Odin, the Nordic god who has been brought there before. And, you know, has a certain influence, and then it goes back to the story itself. But yeah, this is the way I treated almost all the lyrics. The most personal one, but that's also related by the story The Leftovers. Tom Perrotta is his name. And that is a story about loss. When André and I worked on Let It Be No More, it was the time when my mother passed away. And that obviously had an influence on the way I sang and I treated the melody lines. And later on, I, you know, made that the topic of the song as well.
Mm. And what are the Architects of Doom, which is also a single?
That's my favorite song on the album. It's, I think, also the most diverse Blind Guardian song on this one, because it's really doomy and it's really thrashy. We let our hair and aggressions down a lot there. And that was a very helpful song over the last 2 years, I think. It is related basically to Battlestar Galactica, to the movie or to the series. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about the old one or the new one. It's about the cycle of violence, which repeats again and again and again. And, you know, there seemed to be no escape because we are doomed to do the same mistakes again and again.
Let's leave the lyrics behind. You played the first real live shows this year with audience again. So, which of
light bulbs in the animation studio.
So, which of the live shows were special to you this year?
Well, I mean, of course, the very last that we just have played, the Hellfest, is outstanding for its huge setup and the amount of people that are coming there. I like the whole place there, like the whole flair of the festival is special with all this artwork that is placed everywhere. I mean, the very first show is, of course, also outstanding because then you get this back to the live feeling and like the direct feedback from the fans, which was definitely not there for the last, how many years? 3 years or something?
Yeah, for me it was like 5 years, the last shows. I mean, the real touring ended for me in 2017. Plan was a little bit different. But then we played some shows in the Kufa, Krefeld, but you will not get into the real tour feeling. And, so it was really, really difficult. And the first real show for me was then the Rock Hard Festival in front of a huge audience, a broadcasting in Rockpalast. And I thought, oh my God, how can you do this? So I was really nervous and had to focus and prepare myself to get there. And we all worked very hard the weeks before to get focused and get into a mood instead of having warm-up shows, doing lots of rehearsals, to be really on the spot.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, we have a great team. All the musicians are still want to achieve this, that band is functioning and we can give 100% when we need to. So that first gig was a success for us. It was really a nice show. We enjoyed. Everybody was singing along all the time. And after this, it was such a relief. I could feel that, wow, okay.
I would also say the Rock Hard show was the most significant one, and it was the most important one because it was the first one, and we had to be on spot, and luckily we were. You cannot program that. Yeah. There's just, one tiny little thing going into the wrong direction and everything more or less collapses a bit. It's always like the domino stones. Either they stay or they fall. Mm-hmm. And in that particular case, I had the feeling that we were on fire and the audience was even more on fire. And that made our life very easy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my last question. What can you tell us about the artwork from Peter Morbacher?
Yeah, I have to say, Peter Morbacher is ingenious.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. If you check out his pages, his Angelarium stuff, I think it's called, is amazing. We visited his pages and were really an urge for an artist who brought us to a different dimension, to say so, because we felt the music was a new beginning. So we wanted to feature that on the artwork as well. And then we found his page, suggested by our record company guys, and we fell in love with it. Everyone in the band was just like, okay, that's the guy we need to work with. Yeah. And we found I would say at least 10 to 15 images, which we all would have taken immediately. So we got in contact, spoke to him. He was aware of Blind Guardian. That helped a little bit. But he's a real artist. So he's very special. And it was good to deal with him. And we could convince him that he gave us the images we liked. So they were not... The one which is on the album artwork is his main art. It was not designed for us, but we felt it was designed for us.
Yeah. And we saw it, we fell in love. We wanted this.
Yeah.
Even that he painted one for us.
Yeah, he did.
We totally agreed. That needs to be the one. That needs to be the one. And he said, but I use it already. We said, we don't care.
We don't care. We don't care. We just said, we don't care. And if we can get somewhere, you can get this and that and blah, blah, blah. So it was really cool to work with him. And even when we did the next one, I'm almost sure that we would find something he already had created, which we say, well, this is it, like an art of, the 15th century or so. It's just so suitable. It's fantasy. It's what we define as classic artworks, but still so modern. It has that. I'm not the biggest pundit, but it has a computer game attitude somehow, or there are these
RPG
card games,
edition,
and that's so amazing. It fits 100%, and I'm really happy.
A little bit aggression,
Yeah.
and that dynamic,
It's intense.
exactly like the music.
Yeah, and you do not exactly know what it's telling, still, even though it is so intense and so aggressive, and you see what is happening there, but it leaves rooms for so many interpretation. I'm just blown away. Whenever I look at it, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention, and make sure to check out the album.